Maxey from outside. Sixers lead, courtesy of Tyrese Maxey.
Hit deep to left field, going back is Locastro. It is gone!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beef Up Front podcast here on Pick Swap Media. Your host, Ryan Coyle, as always. First time back on the Pick Swap waves in a while. Been doing a lot of stuff over at Fox Sports The Gambler, but we're here in the middle of July. Football season is right around the corner, and today marks the first episode of my college football season preview series. I did a bunch of these last year, 25, 30 teams. 25 to 30 of the top teams that are getting a lot of attention, a lot of buzz as we head into this upcoming 2025 season. Series did pretty well last year. Thought we would run it back this year, and I thought it's a perfect time to start here on July 15th. We are about 5 weeks away from the first kickoff in college football, week 0 between Kansas State and Iowa State over in Ireland. So a great time to get back in the mix here, talking college football. Going to be doing my goal is over the next month and a half to do 25, 30 of these on some of these top teams. We'll hit on teams from the SEC, Big 10, Big 12, ACC, and probably even give, a handful of group of 5 teams and Notre Dame as well out of the independents. So today's episode, I want to focus on a team that I think has arguably the most pressure on them of any team in the SEC this upcoming season. You can argue maybe even the country, and a lot of that is tied to the head coach, but this is a team with a big brand. The Oklahoma Sooners have one of the biggest brands in all of college football. They transitioned over into the SEC last year for their first season after being, I think, the dominant force in the Big 12 for the better half of the past decade. Texas kind of fell off the map a little. Texas has gone back up to the top, been on a steady incline as one of the best programs in college football over these past few seasons. Going to the playoff, obviously, last year, big-time expectations. This year, maybe the preseason number 1 overall team led by Arch Manning with Sark and all. But Oklahoma was, the dominant force in the Big 12 over the past decade or so. They were superior to Texas. I think we can all agree with that. And say what you want about Lincoln Riley, say his teams might be soft, say the move to USC in the Big 10 hasn't panned out. He was a dominant coach at Oklahoma. He had the team going to the playoffs. He was churning out number 1 overall picks. He was a damn good football coach at Oklahoma. They've definitely taken a step back since Brent Venables got there. But we're going to get into all that, break down the program, what to expect this season, what happened last year, the head coach, all that and more. I give you a breakdown on the head coach, 2024 recap, offense, defense, and then my schedule prediction along with some gambling lines for this team. So the 2025 Oklahoma Sooners, let's get into it. Led by head coach Brent Venables. He's been the head coach there since 2022, a 22-17 overall record. As I said, with Lincoln Riley, all that dude did was win games. He might not have got that team, that program over the top, but we won a lot of football games. And I know Brent Venables transitioned into the SEC last year, obviously a step up from what the Big 12 was with Lincoln Riley there, but he's got a ton of pressure on him this year. I think Brent Venables arguably has the hottest seat in the entire country as he enters year 4 here at Oklahoma. He's 0-3 in bowl games. They went 10-3 in 2023. Oklahoma rewarded with him with an extension, and that was as they transitioned over into the SEC. I thought that was a foolish move. I'm not saying I would have cut bait with him after going 6-7 year 1, 10-3 year 2, but I don't think he was worthy of an extension. But he's getting paid $8.5 million a year. You're Oklahoma, one of the bigger brands of college football. You better produce. And in a really competitive SEC, and they have a really tough schedule, it's going to be a hard season, I think, for Oklahoma and Brent Venables to get off that hot seat. I think he has to go at least 9-3 to feel comfortable. Anything less than that, I think they might want him out. Not even going to a bowl game or only winning 6 games definitely is going to result in a firing. But 8-4, I think it gets a little hairy. 9-3 or above, I think he keeps his job. But going 6-7 in 2022, 10-3 in 2023, and then 6-7 again in 2024 isn't exactly the standards I think that Oklahoma has been able to build up over these past few seasons. So really looking for this Oklahoma team to take a leap, to take a pretty big jump this year. And I think that should be the focus around this program as well. I talk about it with Villanova basketball all the time. It's like, all right, Jay Wright left. The program's still elite. The program is still one of the best programs in all of college basketball. You can't just be like, oh, it's a new coach, it's going to take some time with Kyle Neptune. No, that was a elite college basketball program that completely has fallen off. Kevin Willard in there now to right the ship. I think you can look at Oklahoma as a college football program in the same right. If they have another so-so season, 7-5, 8-4, I could definitely see Brent Venables out and bringing in a new big-time head coach, and it's going to be a very attractive job. Paying Venables $8.5 million, they're going to be able to shell out some money for a top-tier head coach. So Brent Venables, arguably the hottest seat out of any coach in the country this year. You look at the 2024 season, to recap it, 6-7 in year one in the SEC, 2-6 in SEC play. Their biggest win of the season did come by knocking off number 7 Alabama 24-3, and that basically eliminated the Crimson Tide from college football playoff contention. Just completely wiped out their offense that game. Alabama was basically just in a win-and-in scenario, beat Oklahoma and beat Auburn in their last 2 weeks, I think was their last 2 games, and they would be going to the playoff. Oklahoma showed when they're at their best what they could do and how strong that defense was in spurts last year. But they lost 5 of their 6 SEC games by double digits. Offensive line going into last year had 0 returning starters. I talked about on my show last year. It was a team that I was very worried about their transition to the SEC because, Lincoln Riley's teams, they were more soft. They were more finesse. I don't think they were ready to really quite take that jump. The offensive line was thin. The defensive line was thin. And not just depth-wise, but, overall size-wise as well. I think this year they're better equipped to handle some of this rough, tough stuff in the SEC play. But the offensive line last year had 0 returning starters. That kind of sets you up for a rough season with a young quarterback last year with Jackson Arnold as well. You had Arnold and then Michael Hawkins in there rotating at quarterback. Both of them kind of in and out of the lineup. The wide receiver room was crushed by injury. Was reading up earlier, like their top 5 guys were all injured at some point last season, and a lot of them injured at the same time. And they only averaged Oklahoma 24 points per game last season. That was the lowest since 1998. The defense was very good. It allowed 24.3 points per game, I believe the average was. It kept them in a lot of football games, but the offense really struggled, and that's the main kind of change for this year, and the reason for optimism more so down there in Norman, Oklahoma. It's a team that is expected to take a leap on offense, brought in a transfer quarterback, a new offensive coordinator. We'll talk about that in just a minute, but this is a team that is bringing back a lot of strong players on the defensive side of the ball again, a defensive-minded head coach. They should be fine on that side of the ball. Can the offense take that leap and help this Oklahoma team, remains to be seen. That's the major question mark with this squad. Almost 5 of those 6 SEC games in that first year in the SEC by double digits. The fan base, it needs that to be, at least a little bit more competitive. And like I said, anything less than 8-4, I'd be very worried. If I was Brent Venables, 8-4, I'd say you're 50-50. 9-3, I'd probably say you're safe. 9-3 with the schedule that they have too might even get them into the playoff, which is the crazy thing. It's a super tough schedule this year. It's not a schedule that you want to play if you feel like you're on the hot seat. But it should be an interesting year. And Oklahoma, I wanted to start off with them in this series because I truly am fascinated by them, and I think they are one of the highest ceiling, lowest floor type of teams. Like it could be a great year. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they do go 9-3, 10-2, but also wouldn't surprise me if they go 5-7, 4-8, just because of how tough the schedule is and still a lot of unknowns on the offensive side of the ball. So when we transition over to that offensive side of the ball, they return 8 starters from last year's offense that we talked about was an offense that struggled, but you bring guys back, you expect some continuity, some returning players and a new quarterback, a new offensive coordinator to ignite a spark in this offense. They welcome in a new quarterback here in John Mateer from Wazoo, one of the better unknown players, I think you could say, in all college football last year. Go and watch some of his highlights and look up some of his numbers. He was an exciting player, and he comes over from Washington State with offensive coordinator Ben Arbuckle. It's one of the many trends I think you're going to see nowadays with the transfer portal and NIL. Teams that get a quarterback that's transferring up, going from a place like Washington State to Oklahoma, that offensive coordinator, if he didn't get a head coaching job somewhere, most likely going to follow and then probably parlay that into a bigger job if he has some more success. But Ben Arbuckle, John Mateer, they should ignite some life into this offense and be a really fun team to watch. I don't know how great they're going to be, W's wise, but I think Oklahoma games are going to be really fun because that defense is really strong and this offense, I think, has some explosive ability. John Mateer is a dark horse Heisman candidate and is going to be one of the most electric players, not only in the SEC conference, but in all of college football. He threw for 3,100 yards last year, ran for 800 yards, and keep in mind that they keep in college, you lose yards to your rushing yards for sacks. So he still was able to rush for 800 yards last year. Pretty amazing work. And they bring in Jaden Ott from Cal at running back. He was a late transfer, but he ran for 1,300 yards last year. That's as fun of a backfield as there is going to be, not just in the SEC, but all of college football in terms of quarterback and running back being able to both run the football. Like there's going to be more explosive backfields that are able to throw the ball and run the ball. But backfield-wise, quarterback, running back, rushing duo, John Mateer and Jaden Ott, it doesn't get much better than that. That's going to be a tough group. I think they're going to try and keep that more so to a ball control type offense, really focus on the running game and get their explosive plays out of that, hit on some deep passing plays when they can, but bang on that defense, have this really strong running game. It's going to set them up for success and try and keep these games as close as possible. Deion Burks, the name to know at receiver, he looked good in spurts last year, but was another player that was hurt at times. He's a former transfer from Purdue, but that was a wide receiver room that was decimated by injuries last year. They can't be much worse than they were last year because of all the guys hurt. A lot of unproven players, though, and guys that are going to have to step up. We talked about a team that returns 8 starters on the offensive side of the ball, but they're bringing back receivers that didn't really play that much last year, that don't really have that much production to their name. Can one of these guys step up kind of behind Burks? He's looked at as the number 1 receiver for Oklahoma. They're going to need some other guys to step up at receiver and tight end going into the season. And the big question mark on this team on the offensive side of the ball last year was that offensive line. As we talked about at the beginning, returned 0 starters from the team last year. This year, they returned 4 starters. So they might not have been all that great last year, but they got a lot of experience, and they got a lot of SEC experience. Anytime you bring back 3 or more starters on the offensive line, I would consider that a win. This team brings back 4 and a chance to be a really good unit here in their second year in the SEC. So should be more acclimated, should be an exciting offense, and should be one of the best running games in the country with John Mateer and Jaden Ott. Expect this offense to take a leap, to take that kind of next step after a really down season last year with Jackson Arnold and Michael Hawkins at quarterback, and with the poor offensive line, poor receiver room. Couldn't get much worse. So this offense should definitely take a step up, and John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle, the Washington State kind of connection there, should make this team a pretty fun watch on that side of the ball. Now we transition over to the defense. Brent Venables' side of the ball had the 6th best defense in the country last year, according to Phil Steele's magazine. They returned 8 guys on that side of the ball as well. So they're returning 16 of their 22 starters this year on offense and defense. They held their opponents to 21 or less in 6 games. Oklahoma defense held that Alabama team to 3. And we saw that Alabama team, in various games put up some big points. They also put up some clunkers. But to hold Alabama to 3 points anytime without them suffering any major injuries or something in that game, that's impressive and goes to show you what that defense was capable when they were playing at their best, and what Brent Venables is capable of cooking up when he's at his best. Going against a Kalen DeBoer offense, holding to 3 points, that's as impressive as it gets in college football. As we said, Venables, a defensive mind. This side of the ball, I think, will be the strength of the team. I expect that offense to improve from last year, but I expect the defense to be what carries his team, and they're going to be tested. We're going to talk about the schedule next, but it's a very tough schedule with some very good players that are going to be tested. Those DBs are going to be tested every single week in this conference. Danny Stutman was the voice of reason for that team last year. He was the heart and soul of that defense. In the middle of that defense was a 2-time All-American at linebacker. He's out to the NFL draft, so that's going to be a big player that they're going to have to replace, 100-plus tackle type of guy. But the guy I'm expecting to step up on the defense this year is edge rusher Mason Thomas. He had 9 sacks last season, able to come back this year, another year in Venables' system. I'm expecting a big season from him. He's the name to know on the defense, but the team's going to be tasked with stopping some high-powered potential offenses. They have Auburn on the schedule. I'm expecting to take a step up. Texas with Arch Manning, South Carolina with Lenore Sellers, Ole Miss with Austin Simmons, who I think is going to be awesome. Alabama, don't know so much about the quarterback spot right now. Still a bit of an unknown, but the skill position players are awesome everywhere. Garrett Nussmeier at LSU and all their skill position players. Defense is going to be tasked with some tough games, and they held their opponents to 21 or less in 6 games last year. A handful of those were non-conference games, but they did it against Tulane, who was a really good G5 team. Houston, who had a pretty solid season last year. Temple was one of them, Maine, so not exactly world beaters. A couple SEC games, though, they held their opponents in check. The Auburn game, I think they held them to 21 points. And then the Alabama game, as we talked about, they held them to 3 points. So it's a defense that is the lifeblood, I think, of this team. This team will go as far as the defense takes them. And I think they're going to be tasked with the offense playing a kind of a ball control, run heavy type of offense. I don't know how much passing Mateer is going to be doing. He can throw the ball, he can sling the rock, he can make some plays, but I think it's a team that's going to win with their defense and win with their running game. So to wrap everything up, kind of a scheduled prediction here and a look at the gambling odds over at DraftKings Sports for what they think of this Oklahoma team as they enter the 2025 season. The over-under at DraftKings for wins is set at 6.5 for this Oklahoma squad, minus 170 to the over, plus 140 to the under. So juice to the over there. They like this team to at least win 7 games. And like I said, if that's a scenario that happens, I think that's probably the end for Brent Venables. Maybe they give him the benefit of the doubt with potentially, the toughest schedule in the country. Some people are calling it. And if they show some improvement, maybe he gets one more year. But I think anything less than 7 wins, he's definitely done 7, maybe, a 10, 15% chance he keeps the job. I think he needs to win at least 8 to feel somewhat safe, 9 to feel comfortable. They're 65 to 1 to win the national championship, plus 550 to win the 30 to 1 to win the SEC. That's 11th. They are plus 550 to make the playoff and minus 900 to miss. So heavily juiced to miss this year. I will say Phil Steele has them as his number 1 surprise team in his magazine. He's been doing it a while. He likes this team to be the number 1 surprise team in the country and potentially make the playoff. And he's been, pretty accurate with this stuff over time. So if you're buying into that, you're believing that plus 550 to make the playoff, maybe worth a stab there, a potential little bit of a flyer there, but minus 900 to miss. We're about to get into the schedule and the schedule breakdown and how tough it is. I think this team more likely than not is going to be on the outside looking in when it comes to playoff time. But run through this team schedule. First game, start off with Illinois State. I'm going to give them a W there. I'm going to give them a W as they host Michigan. Michigan and Oklahoma, 2 of the bigger brands in college football. It's an awesome week 2 game. A lot of unknowns, though, for both squads and what they're going to look like this year after down years for both of them last year. But going to Oklahoma, I'm going to give Oklahoma the benefit of the doubt at home there. Then they travel to Philly to play the Temple Owls on my 26th birthday. I give them a W there, obviously. They host Auburn. I think Auburn's going to have a bounce-back year this year, a little bit of a better year, probably in that 8-4 range. I kind of like them at Jackson Arnold. Revenge game here after getting benched. And rightfully so, I think, due to his performance at times. But what we talked about earlier with the offensive line and the receiver room completely banged up throughout the year and the inexperience on the offensive line, it was a tough situation for him. But he comes back as the starting quarterback there at Auburn. Will be a game to watch. But I like Oklahoma to win there, move to 4-0. Then their next game, Kent State. I like them to start out 5-0. But this is where it really gets tough. Neutral against Texas. Anyone's ball game in that one. History tells us that's one of the biggest rivalries in all of college football. But I'm going to give that one to Texas there. Oklahoma goes to 5-1. Then they travel to South Carolina. I think South Carolina is going to be a damn tough team as well this year. I'm going to give Oklahoma a loss there. They have Ole Miss coming in. I'm going to give them a win in that one. I think that's a coin flip game, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt as the home team. Travel to Tennessee. Not that high on the Vols this year, but still one of the toughest environments in college football. I'll give them an L there. Then they go to Alabama. We saw what they did against Alabama last year. I don't think that they do it 2 years in a row. Give me the Crimson Tide in that one. Missouri, I think, is going to be a little bit of a down year after what we've seen over the past few years from them. So I'd like Oklahoma to get that one done at home. And then the last game of the season, they host LSU. I'm going to give LSU the win there. I think LSU is going to be one of the top teams there in the SEC. And you look at the really tough games on the schedule versus Michigan. You have that at home. Auburn, I think, is a tough one. You have that at home. Texas, a neutral. You go to South Carolina, you host Ole Miss, you go to Tennessee, you go to Bama, and you host LSU. Those are the real tough games on your schedule. Traveling to Bama, to Tennessee, to South Carolina, and neutral versus Texas all away from home. Those are tough games. If you're able to split those, I think you're probably feeling good. But at the end of the day, a lot of tough games on the schedule, not enough. I'm not convinced enough that this offense is going to take that leap and get over the top this year. I think the Oklahoma Sooners are going 7-5 this season, and Brent Venables is out of a job. He'll have a job right away as a defensive coordinator somewhere else, but I think he's out at Oklahoma at the end of the 2025 season. And I think they're going to be a good team. I think they're going to be a tough team. And as I said at the beginning, I wouldn't be surprised if they do go like 9-3, but that's just such a tough schedule. So many tough games on the road to South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama. Those should all be ranked teams, most likely, that you're playing on the road. A neutral versus Texas, and even some of these home games aren't cupcakes. Michigan coming to your house, Auburn coming to your house. One of these teams is going to be a surprise team. LSU coming to your house. Just such a tough schedule. Not enough talent on the offensive side of the ball to make me feel confident about this Oklahoma team. But I think they're still going to be one of the more fascinating watches in all of college football this year. But that'll do it for episode 1 of our 2025 college football primer series, is what we'll probably be calling it here on the Oklahoma Sooners. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Please drop a like. Please drop a subscribe. Our next episode will be on Oklahoma's Week 2 opponent, the Michigan Wolverines. Going to do a deep dive on them, and I will be back to report on the Wolverines soon. But keep it locked here on Pick Swap Media over the next month and a half as we get you ready for college football season. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll talk next time.